Hi, everybody. Today we are over on the East Coast talking to Buck, better known as the man behind Tattoos in Review. And he has tons of followers on YouTube. He's been doing this a minute. He's got hundreds of videos. It's going to be fun. So, hey, Buck, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I feel like I'm going to get schooled on this one real quick. So, anyway, um,
Nah,
I was just curious about, your background in tech. Like, how did you get into doing YouTube videos?
believe it or not, I had back surgery. I was laid up. I knew I was going to be laid up for a couple months, and I started to watch YouTube. And I went, I'm going to teach myself how to do this. And while I was laid up on the chair, I started watching vidIQ, a couple other creators, and I went, you know what? I have the audio down pat. Uh, I know how to do that part because I actually did, some professional audio engineering, but I had to teach myself how to use a camera, how to edit. And when I started the channel, it was basically just doing interviews. I had a bunch of friends that were tattoo artists, and I wanted to do something around tattooing because I love it. I also love the history of it, which we can get into here shortly, but it did start off with interviews.
Okay, yeah. I kind of wondered, like, why, as a non-tattooer, you might feel that it was so important to document tattooing.
Yeah, so I don't know if I felt it was important. It just was an interest, and I felt like it was something that I loved enough and it was interesting enough that people would be into it. I feel like that there are plenty of tattoo artists that their names, i.e. some of the bigger names in the craft, but there's plenty of the local gods that a lot of people don't know about that are just as equally important, that have put their time, blood, sweat, and tears into this craft. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to hear from them and give them a little light.
Yeah, totally. I mean, get their perspective on it. I think that's 100% right. There's so many people out there now, and it's not just the big shots that you see every day that are the most interesting people, let me say. They are interesting in their own right, but it's kind of when they've done 100 podcasts already, they got the same story and it's all the same. How many times do you tell the same story without it getting boring? But for you, I mean, the fact is, 20 years ago, I don't think you'd have been able to get away with this because I know my generation would have been like, "You're not a tattooer? I don't want to talk to you." So have you ever come across any of that?
Well, to be fair, I still deal with that. I
Okay.
mean, that is kind of where the whole history stuff came into play.
Hmm.
I had, I don't know, maybe a handful of interviews in my back pocket ready to go. And then once I realized that I needed to have a couple more, I had, some people that were like, "Oh yeah, yeah, man, I'm in." And then later on, they were just like, "Nah, not interested," or never got back to me. So 2 years later, here we are, and I still have people that, you know, do the "Yeah, yeah, man, I'm in," and then they kind of just blow me off, and I don't hear from them again. And it's not with me not doing my due diligence and doing follow ups and stuff like that, or sometimes it's just flat out, "Hey, no, I'm not interested," which is fine. I mean, it's there's no bad feelings or anything like that. If somebody says no or is not interested, yeah, it stings a little bit, but I get it. Um, I don't think I've ever had anybody come flat out and be like, "Hey, you're not a tattooer." No.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of interesting. I would have thought that would have been your biggest problem as far as people not wanting to do it. I mean, I think there are people, and I've had the same thing. Actually, I've done interviews and then they call and they're like, "Please hold that. I wasn't happy with it. Don't release it," kind of thing. Granted, I'm new at this, but still, I think there's a lot of people that just don't want to talk on camera and they don't realize that until they're 2 minutes in front of the whole thing. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So I think that is a piece of it. I feel like my style of not having a script, not having bullet points, and I try to break it down like, "Hey guys, we're just going to be like shooting the shit. It's going to be us just chopping it up and we're going to record it." And I also make a point of saying, "Look, I will never ever edit anything or ask you anything that's gonna put you in a negative light,
Okay.
and you have my promise. That is 100% guarantee no matter what. Now look, my stuff does get edited because I cut out ums and ahs and pauses and stuff like that just to keep the conversation flowing, but I'll never take anything out of context. I will never ask anything that if you were to ask me that question, I would be uncomfortable answering it. So I just kind of keep that mentality.
Do you ever get people that are kinda just freeze up? You know, how do you deal with that when someone just doesn't, like, talk, period?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm pretty good people person to where I can kind of like soften it up a little bit. And I also tell everybody it's not live. So I often say, hey, look, if you mess up, just be like, hey, can I redo that?
Mhm.
Leave a little pause and I'll edit it out. It's that easy. I mean, people mess up all the time.
Yep.
I've had instances where I've done interviews like I'm doing with you right now, or we're on a live stream where I've said something and I immediately went, damn it, that was wrong. That's one thing I will always say to everybody. I will do my best to be as accurate as possible. I am not about trying to spit out bad information.
Well,
And I
that's
take
good.
a little, yeah, I mean, because I feel like, let's put it this way, I deal with numbers all day for my regular job. And I'm in a position where you could take two good steps forward. And the minute you put out bad information, bad data, as we call it, it's like you take three steps backwards.
Right.
So I do my due diligence. I try my best to be as accurate as possible. If I don't know, I don't have a problem saying I don't know. I'm still learning.
Right.
I also don't have a problem going, hey, look, you know what? I don't know that answer, but let me dig in or ask a few people and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, for sure. You guys you do have a live stream though, right? You have the 2 fat guys thing? That's the live stream?
Yeah, so on Sunday nights, I do it's called Two Fat Guys in a Tattoo Shop. My buddy Justin is a tattoo artist. He's been tattooing for I think it's 25, 26 years. He's gonna kill me because I don't know the exact time frame, but he's got a really cool, unique shop. He's also one of my people that I go to because he's got a pretty vast library of books in at his shop. So there's him as a source for, "Hey, man, I need this book." And he'll be like, "Oh, I have it," or "No, I don't have it. You can find it here." So we do that on Sunday nights. It is sometimes it's history, sometimes it's current event stuff. And what I mean by current events is like this Sunday, we did a Philadelphia Tattoo Convention recap. We've also done maybe some recent tattoo news stories. Like we did an episode about that guy Ganga doing the Nike tattoo school, stuff like that. And then on Wednesday nights, I also do a live stream by myself here at the
Oh,
house. And that is more about me just hanging out with the community. That's another big part of my channel is we set out to build a good community of people. People that like to get tattooed. We have tattoo artists in that community. We have collectors in that community. So it's just a big family. We call it the Tattoos and Review family. And that's more what those Wednesday nights are about. And I do a lot of history on that as well.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I just find it amazing when I see all the stuff that you're doing, like, how in the hell do you get time to do all of this and edit it and have a regular job?
So I don't drink or do drugs anymore.
There's a start.
Yeah, I've been matter of fact, in December, I hit, like, 12 years, clean and sober.
Good for you, man.
I'm 52 years thank you. I'm 52 years old. I'm not out running and gunning no more. So, not that I have a lot of free time, but my free time during the week, it eats up. Like, I literally get done work. I get up super early for work, so I'm done kinda early during the day. I'll edit from 3:30 until 6:30, 7 o'clock until I eat. I'll eat dinner, turn around, come back, and I'll edit till 10, 11 o'clock at night.
I noticed myself that it was a lot, and that's why I'm kinda asking you, like, how you managed to get it all done because, I mean, I basically found a fairly idiot-proof app that does a lot of the work for me. I'm sure my stuff's still super low tech, but then I look at yours and it's all, you know, fancy this and fancy that and pictures and little videos in there and just you really do like amp it up into something super cool to watch. And that's gotta take time.
It does, but if you were to go back and watch my first couple, they
Well,
were they were definitely not that good. They weren't bad, don't get me wrong, they weren't bad, but I learned a lot in a very short time. And again, that is I'm gonna chalk that up to diving into it head first, and then also just basically absorbing and sponging as much stuff as I could from YouTube. There's
mhm,
plenty of channels out there that'll be like, "Hey, if you have DaVinci Resolve, which is the program I use to edit, here's a good channel to watch," and they'll teach you the basics, and then it'll kind of progress into more advanced stuff. If you need help with YouTube, vidIQ is a phenomenal channel. They will tell you all the stuff that because people don't realize like all the back end stuff that needs to get done on YouTube in order to have a channel like operate properly. So yeah, it's stuff like that that just instead of watching TV at night, I would watch that and be
mhm.
like, and mental notes or actually physically taking notes.
Yeah, ain't nothing good on TV these days, so you're not missing out, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I find that I actually watch more YouTube than I do regular TV at this point. I think that there's enough stuff on there that it just makes it like,
It really does. I mean, it's a phenomenal amount of information, and I've kind of scratched the surface of it. You know, for me, I did a few podcasts about the book. I even did one with you, you know, and I was at a point of like, well, there's not much tattooing going on. Maybe I should do that podcast thing. How hard could it be, right? So, well, anyway, it turns out it's a little harder than I thought. Then you get all these YouTube videos will come flying at you going, do it this way. You know, this is going to make you look way better. So, yeah, I agree that there's a lot.
the only thing I could tell you is from a editing standpoint is edit it through, do like a rough edit, watch it and go, do I get bored anywhere? And
Okay.
then if you go, you know what, I'm kind of bored right here, you go, can I get rid of this part here? Does it add anything to the overall story? And if it does, then obviously you need to leave it. But if it doesn't, then you could say, okay, well, let me trim this out, and that's kind of how it comes down to a feel. You got to look at it from a perspective of you're going to be the person that's going to consume it.
Mhm.
So if you're watching it and you get bored, you know damn well that the person that's going to be watching it is going to feel the same thing. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
but I feel like that has a kind of a lot of levels because I mean the demographic of age between myself and someone just getting into tattooing at the age of 20 is huge. So realistically I'm not quite sure if I got bored. They probably have been asleep a long time ago, right? So but it's kinda like doing interviews. I mean, I do the interviews for Tattoo Artist Magazine, which you've just joined up with those guys, we'll get to that in a minute, and it's the same kind of thing when you're reading stuff and it's kind of, "Okay, this is big and flat and boring right here, this section. Nobody's gonna wanna plow through that because there's nothing of real interest in it." I think so, it's a similar type of thing with writing, no?
Yeah, but you can also, if you get to those points where maybe add in some flash of pops of pictures, there's believe it or not, I didn't realize this until I started doing it, but there's this whole psychological aspect of editing.
Mhm,
And I was taught this 7-second rule, which I've since kind of drifted away from. But it's true. If you next time you go to watch TV or a movie, you see the scene start, count to 7, and I guarantee you there's going to be a camera movement or a cut or something that what it does is it visually there you go, stimulates you, and it kind of hooks you back in.
right, okay.
So there's like these weird little tricks that you will learn as you go that can help you out, and it'll take some of that out.
So, yeah, going back to Tattoo Artist Magazine, I saw that your name came up on the list of people that had joined up to be volunteers for that and whatnot. What's your role in that?
Yeah, so Dave actually hit me up and he said, "Hey, I love the interview you did with Mike Schwager. Would you like to be a contributor?" And I said, "Hey, Dave, appreciate it, brother. I never even thought about doing it because I was like, I'm not a tattoo artist." And he said, "Well, Bill Tinney wasn't a tattoo artist."
People that have had, you know, contributions to the industry, right? Same, same.
So I went. "Okay, well, what are you asking of me?" And he was like, "Well, we'd like you to do some interviews, and I don't care if it's in written format or video format." And I said, "Well, my thing is video, and if it's a digital copy magazine, I would rather just do a video."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, okay, no problem." So I actually am in the process of editing a video right now for Brandon Feldman from Ventura. That's going to be in the March. He's doing like a machine builders episode, or yeah, I don't know what you call it if it's a digital copy.
Yeah, I don't really know either. I'm just doing what I've been asked to do and doing interviews, and then here you go. I mean, I don't really have much time more than that to kind of follow it along, unfortunately. But yeah, it
Gotcha.
turns out somebody talked me into doing podcasts on the side.
There you go.
Boy, and speaking of, I mean, there's just no end to the kind of people you could talk to. The list is absolutely endless these days. How do you pick?
Yeah. So a lot of it turns out to be a friend of a friend, or just me going, I'm going to take a leap of faith and ask.
Hmm.
Mm, So that's how I get the interviews. As far as doing the history stuff, it's man, it's this like rabbit hole from hell where I'll be doing an episode on this person, and then I find out more information about this person, and then I go, well, you know what? I'm gonna do that episode next. Or if you look at my list of videos that I've done, I did the Charlie Wagner episode, which turned me on to the Coney Island episode, which turned me on to the Pike. And
Right.
it's just, one thing after another. And, there's tons and tons of cool stuff to be talked about. The problem that I have is I like to add visuals to what I'm talking about. So when you get too far back, it's pictures and stuff are far and few between. And I know from the people that watch my stuff, if I add in AI anything, they get a little pissy about it.
Right. Well,
Yeah, which is understandable considering, tattoo artists are pretty much against it. That seems to be the consensus.
you can't put AI in your videos. People hate it. Yeah. But you look at stuff that's done in video, and sometimes you're just like, is it real? Is it not real? So how
Yeah,
do we know
so
if they
when
are
I
real?
do it, if I add anything because it adds to the story and it's, maybe something where I couldn't find a picture, I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. I did the George Burchett episode, right? And they were talking about him being a young kid and hanging out with a bunch of sailors and stuff like that. And I made a cool AI thing. And the way I make it, you can see it's very cartoon esque. It's not like I'm trying to make this like realistic looking thing. So I'm adding it for depth, but I'm not adding it to be like, ha, I fooled you. If that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think that we are definitely in the tattoo world struggling with AI pictures because people bring this stuff in and it just looks awful. It makes no sense whatsoever. And they're like, I want it just like this.
Yeah,
And
but the irony of that is you also see people that are posting pictures that are, shall we say, doctored.
mhm, definitely. But that's been going on since before AI. There's a little slider on the Instagram thing that can make your colors look like they just came off the planet Mars, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, and stuff like that's always problematic. I mean, I think trickery is just part of selling things, it always has been, and it's not just in tattooing, but I do feel that, you see a lot of these tattoos that look amazing because somebody used a slider and you can tell, but it's like it looked amazing without the slider, so what the hell are you thinking, right? So I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's also been this trend of what Justin and I like to call on our live stream is like media tattooing,
Hmm.
where it's basically these artists that are doing these tattoos that look good the day that the picture's taken. And then if you see that tattoo 6 months or a year later, kind of looks like crap. Uh,
Yeah, that's been going on for quite some time, though. That whole doing the tattoo for the photograph thing, I think, is what we used to call it. And it seems to have been going on, I would say, for a good 10, 15 years, where people will just, do a free sleeve so they can put it in their portfolio. But nowadays, I think it's leaning more towards it's not just that they're doing it for the photo, it's just that they don't give a shit what it's going to look like in 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. So that's probably more what Justin's kind of thinking about, right? When he says that.
yeah, well, like, so we've given examples of that, and I I don't consider myself an influencer by any means,
Mhm.
but there are people out there that are I guess they would call themselves influencers from a tattoo perspective, and, like, the one guy got his feet done and it looked amazing, and then somebody put pictures up. I think it might have been Kirk Fagan, um,
Yeah, okay.
and Kirk put pictures up, and they look like I was like, "Jesus, what happened?" And then another guy got his chest done and looked amazing, and I was like, "Wow, that's sick." And then they showed the guy on the beach and took a picture of it, and it was like black blobs with, like, green dots in it, and I was just like, "Man, what happened?" Because that's to me is like, you spent all that time in the chair, you spent all that money, and then a year later, it looks like crap. I mean,
Well, I mean, the Tattoo Truth Fairy on Instagram actually had a bunch of that going on. I'm not even sure if they're still active, but they put clearly like fresh and healed. And, as a tattooer, yeah, we've been seeing that for a really long time. And we say now, oh, it's going to look like crap. You guys don't know how it's going to look when it's healed up. And everyone's like, well, you're just insecure because you think we're better than you and all this kind of shit. So I think there's just a gulf between proper tattooers and newer generation who really, I feel like they don't even give a shit what it's going to look like in 10 years. That's not part of their MO to care.
maybe, maybe. I mean, I think you might be onto something. I just it blows my mind. When I interviewed Eric Perfect, he talked about that, and he was like, man, some of the stuff that they're doing now, and they're saying it's gonna last. We saw that shit in the '80s, and we told everybody it wasn't gonna work, and it didn't. And da 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 da. Like, I mean, I'm not a tattoo artist. I will never go out of my way to be like, like Kirk Fagan style of being like, oh, let's look at these tattoos and be judgy because that's not my place. I'm just here to be the guy that enjoys it from my perspective, right? But I can see where people that are tattoo artists are putting up that fight because you do that every day. You're putting ink in the skin every day. You understand it. You understand all the aspects that I'll probably never even grasp.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, explain that stance because I think it's important before you get people going like, well, you're not a fucking tattooer, right? But there's definitely a thing nowadays about how the older tattooers, pre 2000s, those of us that learned pre 2000 haven't evolved, right? And because we're not using iPads and copying pictures and doing whatever fancy shit they're doing today. And I think that's true. But the main reason it's true is because we were taught to do things with recognizable definition, with clean lines and solid shading and good color, that would stand the test of time. I mean, that was the essence of a tattoo. And I've talked about this before on podcasts, but the essence of a tattoo in itself, as opposed to a piece of art, is that a tattoo is going to be there for a lifetime, right? It's something that the person takes with them to the grave. And so, therefore, your duty is to make sure that it still looks the same when it gets there, right? Or as close as possible, obviously, factoring in years. But the modern age seems to be more focused on what we can do as art, like tattooing is art. And I honestly don't believe it is. I think there's a world of difference between tattooing and fine art.
You're right. So the other thing is, you said you appreciate the stance that I take, but the other part that I also try to like put out there right off the bat when I started this channel was the very first video I did. I stood out in front of my buddy's tattoo shop. It was February or March. It just snowed. I was freezing my ass off. I had, no jacket on, so you could see that I was visibly tattooed. So I wasn't like a guy that just had one or two tattoos to start a tattoo channel. You know what I'm saying? Like I wanted people to see that I was like, hey, like this guy at least has lived it.
Well, yeah. I mean, dude, the fact is, I mean, you probably know 50 times more about tattooing than a lot of the people that are tattooing today, especially
I don't
within the
want to say
last
that.
5 to 10 years. No, it's true because I mean the kids don't really care about history. And I was working with a young person recently who was very nice and very polite and very respectful and all of that. She never asked me a single question about tattooing, and I thought that's kind of odd because I have been around the game for like 40 years, But it occurred to me that she had learnt with a pen. She knew how to work it extremely well. She did very nice, very clean tattoos, and she made money. And that was kind of it. It was just like she had no real interest other than that, and I thought that's a whole new generation. It really is a new generation of people doing tattoos. They don't have to relate to the older generations. They don't have to know about history. And so there it is.
Yeah. Well, I think that when I did the interview with Joey Knuckles, I kind of touched on that and I asked him about that. And he said, I'm under the belief of it's just not their time to understand history. That
Good
eventually,
way to put it.
if you're in this long enough, at some point you're gonna want to understand the history of it. You're gonna be interested in it. It's just not their time right now. And I was like, okay. And to be fair, it changed my mindset right from there. I was like, I get it. I understand what you're saying. But I think that it's like there's this current thing that's going on about apprenticeships, and there's people bashing apprenticeships. And the way I look at it is if you're in any trade, if you're a mechanic or an electrician or a plumber, let's say you're a mechanic, right? And you get into it. You're going to go through the basics first, and then you're going to probably do brakes before anything else. They're not gonna just sit you down and be like, "All right, tear down that engine," and it just doesn't work that way. I know that everybody wants to push the gatekeeping thing and stuff like that, but I think it was Sailor Eddie had said to me, "It's not that I'm gatekeeping, it's that you're not ready for that information yet."
Right.
And
Well,
I
but
went,
I did talk to a young person who said, and I thought this was kind of curious, that it's like trying to understand America without knowing anything about its history. And I thought that was kind of a good point. If you don't have building blocks. But then again, I mean, I would also agree that the younger people don't really need to know so much about Sailor Jerry and Cap Coleman, but they should probably be studying Nico Hurtado and Valerie Vargas, something closer related to where they are right now. Assuming that those people had a solid base in their history, then that would be a good, reference for the newer people. So I can see that, yapping on about people from the beginning of the end of the last century kind of makes them go,
"Yeah." And look, I mean, I say this all the time. It would have been if for me, if it was about money and views and all of the good stuff that comes with having this gigantic channel,
mm-hmm,
it would have been a hell of a lot easier for me to be like, all right, man, today we're going to talk about this artist who's the hottest new flashy artist.
mm-hmm.
And it probably would have taken off. But to be honest with you, it wouldn't have fed my soul. I mean, deep down, I think had I not been a screw up in high school, I think I probably would have wound up being the history teacher because I love history in
Yeah,
general.
yeah.
I also understand that history of tattooing is not for everybody. And it was very, very abundant when I had a conversation with Kimiko when I was setting up the Good Time Charlie interview. And she said that Charlie doesn't really do conventions that much these days because we would travel to these conventions and he would kind of sit there and yeah, there would be artists that would come up and talk to him and stuff like that, but it wouldn't be like a lot of people coming up to talk to him
No, I've seen it.
because I don't know.
But it's definitely like you said, though. I mean, a lot of the history stuff's interesting in other ways. Certainly to me, anyway. Talking to a guy from England who had been researching for a history book from the early 1900s, and he's talking about the fairs or the circuses over there, and all these characters that were just wild, and how the families actually all had to do work at the fair and contribute to the pocket book, this stuff. And it was super curious. And these people just kind of came alive in the pages. And I was just like, that's fun. That makes me want to go to the American circus, and kind of makes me curious about where all the women went that tattooed here that no one wanted to talk about. And so, like you said, it makes you into like a historical sleuth of some sort. You just kind of do the Sherlock Holmes thing a little bit. But again, the newer generation of tattooers now, maybe they're just not interested in history. I don't see them being hugely interested in anything other than videos and video games and technology, which is their generation.
Yeah, so I would say that over the past year, I started to see more and more of that change. And then I also have other tattoo artists say to me, "Hey, I'm starting to see some of the younger crowd get into this. It's good to see."
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that's the case not for my own benefit, but just for the benefit of the craft. Because to me, there is a lot of really important stuff that happened or that was talked about. And it's some of it is good and some of it's bad. Um, I think some of the younger people don't fully understand that if you looked at the 70s and 80s, really the biker community is really what kind of kept tattooing afloat.
Unsavory world, that's for damn sure.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So and that's kinda how yes, I mean, I got my first tattoo when I was in college, my first year of college, but after that, it was more around that community is what really kinda made me dive even deeper into tattooing. And then, obviously throughout the years becoming friends with different tattoo artists and stuff like that and hearing stories while I would get tattooed,
Mhm.
that's really kind of what piqued my interest in the history part of it, because there
Yeah.
were really cool stories that I was like, "Damn, dude, that's awesome. I wanna hear more of that."
We used to have nothing but stories in the shops because we used to have to entertain the customers before they had phones, right? So, I mean, it was always stories and there was always crazy shit going on. But honestly, you can't really put a lot of that stuff out in public these days because of the whole PC content thing. People get upset too easily. Maybe validly. I'm not saying it's not valid to be upset about certain things. I mean, but I've talked to quite a few of the old guys where I'm just like, there is nothing in this 50-minute segment that I could actually publish right now because you guys are just awful. It was like not that they were horrible people, but the stuff they were talking about was like partying with the good old boys and the dumb shit they did, and bikers, and I mean, it's just not public consumption. You just can't do that now, you know?
Yeah, and that's so I had somebody actually make a comment today about, I did the Bob Roberts episode, and they made a comment about the club that Bob Roberts was in.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Yeah, well, I make it a point of actually not talking about MCs. I
Mm-hmm.
don't wanna get involved in the politics of it, and if you bring up one, then you don't bring up another. I don't wanna get involved in that.
Right.
But it also is an important part of tattooing, some good, some bad,
Yeah.
and, you know, yeah, some of that stuff is outdated, and I'm not talking about the seedy stuff that we shouldn't be talking about, but I'm even talking about the tattoos themselves.
Mm-hmm.
A little outdated, don't look as nowhere near as cool as the stuff that's obviously out today, but it's still part of it. And the other part of that too, though, is I think that some of the younger people are never going to understand what it was like for somebody like myself being 19 years old in 93 or whatever or 92 walking into a tattoo shop that was run by a bunch of bikers and being like, oh shit, like, you know what I mean, like head on a swivel going, all right, am I going to be all right walking in here? And I don't think it needs to be like that at all, don't get me wrong.
Well, no, I used to have to work in places like that. So imagine that. I was 19 trying to get a job with those cats.
Right. So, but that's the thing though, is like some of the younger crowd doesn't necessarily understand what it was like then.
Well, good for them. I'm glad they don't have to, frankly.
Yeah,
It's
for sure.
definitely, I've talked about this with a lot of the older female tattooers, and all of our starts were kind of the same, just different. There's always that underlying thing of, borderline and or actual abuse from the men, and just hazing in general, like, don't be stupid, get back in the kitchen, women don't do tattoos. And from everybody, not just the people you were working for, but the general public, other women. It was just a constant fight. It was just, I can't even describe it. But anyway, for me, it was life. I didn't take it hard. People have said, like, oh, that must have been tough. It's just what I lived. It was life. Nothing bad ever happened to me. I can't complain about it. But I'm just glad that a lot of the people nowadays, the young females, don't have to go through that, because it wasn't particularly, I don't know, safe. And it wasn't
You know,
particularly enlightening in any way. It was just kind of like, okay, this is going to work. But I sure wish that my customers and the people I worked for would be a little less scary, like you said.
and I agree 100% that none of that needs to be like that today at all.
No, no.
But, I feel like where we're at now is 1,000 times better than we were even in the 90s.
Mhm.
I just don't I also would like to see some of the street shop kind of thing to come back, where there's flashback on the walls, and it's cool to walk in there and see some of the stuff, whether you're doing the stuff on the walls or not. It's cool to see old Flash and see some of that stuff.
It's okay that the shop could be a little edgy. It can be a little fun. It's supposed to be entertaining when you go get a tattoo. It's supposed to be an experience of some sort, right? And it's a different experience now. Things have obviously evolved. The whole world's evolved. I mean, the 80s to now is a whole different thing, right? But I don't know. I think sometimes when you go into shops that are just full of plants and mirrors and shiny surfaces, there's something missing, something's gone, and you're 100% right. It's like if there's no flash on the walls, it's not really a tattoo shop, it's more of a salon doing salon type things, you know?
Yeah, it's just a different vibe. And, also another piece of the puzzle here is I want to sit down and I want it to be an experience. Like I want to sit down and I want to have a like if I came to get a tattoo from you, I'd be picking your brain about what it was like to tattoo in the UK and all
Yeah,
kinds of cool questions.
yeah,
I don't want it to be where you have headphones on, I have headphones on, and we both kind of zone out. Like it to me, the tattoo is a whole experience.
yeah, yeah.
But that's me. I mean, a lot of people aren't into that.
Well, this is kind of part of something I've got in trouble for before, where I say there's a whole difference between tattooers and tattoo artists and tattoo applicators. Because to me, there's something about that whole building of a tattoo, the vibe of a tattoo, and somebody that traces it off the internet and has to use an iPad to apply it while they have their headphones on in order to win a prize at the convention. I mean, that's application. That's no longer tattoo art to me. Just a different realm, whole different realm. But there's no separation, right, between the whole regular tattoo shop, regular tattoos, and then this, which is more, I don't know, sanitized? Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. I always say when I hear people complain maybe about how it is now or whatever, because I always try to be like the middle of the road guy to be like, in all full transparency, I am trying to bridge the gap as best as I
Mhm.
can. And sometimes I might lean one way or the other from an old school perspective or from a new school perspective. But what I always try to say is the way it is right now is there's a shop out there for everyone.
Right, right, 100%.
You just need to find it.
Do you interview people that have been tattooing for less than 5 years?
So I did at the beginning, and what I realized with interviews is that if the person's name doesn't hold a lot of weight, it's tough to get views. Doesn't matter how slick it is, doesn't matter how awesome your thumbnail is, doesn't matter how awesome your title is. And for me, I feel bad for the
Yeah.
person because they took time out of their day and I want people to see it. So when I don't get views on it, I feel like I failed and I failed them. So I kind of started to move away from interviews a little bit for that fact. Also the fact that I was running into problems with lining it up, right? So I think what I would like to do is I would like to go back to that at some point once the channel gets big enough.
Hmm.
I did at the beginning, I did 2 or 3 that were, like, between, like, 1 and 3-year tattooers. I've never interviewed an apprentice, but yeah, so yeah, to answer your question in a long-winded way, yes, I have.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying about people being disappointed if they don't get more than 10 views, but I mean, it's kind of like not winning a prize at a convention, it stings a little bit. 5 minutes and move on. At least somebody took the time to interview you and give you a chance to have
Yeah,
your voice. So, I mean, I feel like that's kind of important is to let people have their voices. And something that I've been looking at doing, I've definitely been telling myself, like, I have to talk to people that have less time in the game, like the newer people, because just sitting here like, oh yeah, the old timers, we had a jolly good time back in the day, and what, just isn't. It's not going to attract that audience either.
yeah. So and to be fair, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed doing those interviews with some of the, less time people.
Hmm.
It really comes down to what I was saying, like, I felt bad. Like, I felt
Right.
like I failed them.
Frankly, I went into this whole thing thinking, well, if I get 10 views at all, I'll be happy. So I got a lot more than that in the first weekend, I think. So I mean, I was actually very surprised. It encouraged me to continue. But I'm going to do it whether I get 10 views, whether I get 100 views, because I have actually found it inspiring and fun talking to people.
Yeah.
and getting their perspectives on stuff, you know. Are you getting to a point where you're making monetary value out of this channel or subscriptions and stuff?
Yeah, but it is minimal at best. I actually
Right.
I'm actually, I'm getting ready to do a little short for the channel because
Uh-huh.
I have people all the time who are like, "Oh, you're monetized. You're making millions off it."
Hmm.
And it's the guy from The Righteous Gemstones.
Okay.
He's the uncle, the seedy uncle, where he's talking about, "I don't make no money off this after I pay the scientists off and my research people." So I was actually gonna make that as a joke because, like, yeah, I am monetized, but I don't make a lot of money.
And I think people also don't really realize quite how much goes into it. I mean, you have to buy all the, you know, you pay for all these platforms that you're using, these edit helpers or whatever, the platforms that you host on, the platforms that you upload to, you know, the YouTube premium, blah, 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 plus your equipment, your microphone, your headphones, all of that stuff. And that's part of why for me, I mean, I didn't really, you know, buy a lot of this stuff to start because I was just like, I'm just going to put my toes in and see what happens. But you're invested. I mean, just because you're not wearing your fancy headphones today and in your shiny studio, that doesn't mean you don't have it.
Yeah, so I started off with just using my phone,
Mm-hmm.
using them cheap. I got them off of Amazon, the Chinese, like, no-name microphones. I fell into the trap at the beginning of, "Oh, if I have better gear," which is bullshit. You don't need all that. If your content's good, you don't need all that bells and whistles. But what
So
happened
there's hope
was is
for
that
me. Sorry.
what happened was, though, is I actually, I did splurge on, um, a desktop computer because I was trying to edit on an old laptop and, like, it was chugging. It was taking me forever. So I was like, "Okay, I'll upgrade there." And then, like, would little pieces here and there when I could afford it, like a couple bucks here or a couple bucks here. And to be fair, I probably went too far with credit cards and stuff like that to try to upgrade some pieces that I thought would matter.
Hmm.
I don't have the best camera. I have a good camera, but I bought it used. It was what I could afford at the time, and then you just kind of add a little bit here and there and a little bit here and there. You got to remember, I think I'm either 2 years or 3 years into this now, so I didn't have all this stuff in the first week. Let's
Right,
put
right.
it that
Exactly. Well, no, I mean, I'm on your side with this because you're also going to a lot of conventions now and stuff, and that's not cheap.
No, man, that trip to LA to do I interviewed, Good Time Charlie, Corey Miller,
Hmm.
Brandon Feldman, and JoJo Ackerman. I still have to put out Corey and Brandon's interviews, but that
Hmm.
trip cost me a fortune.
And you went to Hawaii.
That was my own personal. It turned into a business trip,
Hmm.
but
Yeah,
that was my vacation,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. But you still, I mean, the outlay is probably, has YouTube paid for it yet? Probably not, right?
No, no,
No
not even close. It probably hasn't even paid off my computer yet.
shit. Yeah, you said it was a hard slog, and you know, going back to what you said about the videos that come up that tell you how to do these things, I think the hardest for me was the fact that, you know, you can't even look at getting any kind of subscription or monetizing for your channel before you hit 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah, so in order for you to get monetized, full monetization, and I'll explain that part in a second, but for full monetization, you have to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours in a year.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
So you can
Yeah.
start to do some of this stuff at 500 subscribers and I wanna say 2,000 watch hours, and I don't remember specifically what they were. Like, I think you might have been able to do channel memberships or something like that. But to be fair, if you're a new channel and you're at 500 subscribers, unless you got like the most banging stuff that you're putting out, who in their right mind is going to join your channel membership?
Yeah, I never went into it with the idea of making any money out of it because it just seems like that's ridiculous. But it's having your face out there still, kind of, um, just being around, being present. People are like, "God, she didn't go away yet," whatever the hell. But you know, for me, it's just more of that and linking people together. And I've come across some actually pretty interesting projects. in the middle of all of this that I'll probably seg off onto. So it's just been for fun, you know. But it was just curious when you said, when people say that, you know, oh, you're making tons of money off of it. Like, I don't think so. Hardly.
Nah, nah. I wish that was the case because I'd love to be able to hire an editor.
Yeah.
I'd love to be able to hire a cameraman.
Yeah, but would you really though? I mean, somebody the other day offered me a editor. They were like, "Oh, I got this person could edit for you," and I was like, "Well, even if I was at the standard to be able to do that, or I had the money to be able to do that, I mean, you kind of want to do it yourself because otherwise it's a different feel. All of a sudden
Yeah,
it goes from how Bug does it to how Joe does it, you know?"
yeah, I'm conflicted about the editor part, but I would love to be able to do maybe not so much for the full interview experience, but to have more than one camera set up and then be able to do like some more creative B-roll footage and stuff like that. I feel like I'm in such a rush when I go to different shops to do this stuff because it's like I don't wanna take up their time, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, they're taking an hour out of their time where they could be tattooing and making money, and I feel like I'm like, "I gotta get in here, I gotta set up, boom, 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 alright, I'm done, thanks, man." And then I go, "Shit, I didn't" like, even with Joe Ackerman, I put that video out the other day. I walked out of there, I was all the way down in Burbank at this point, and I went, "Damn it, I didn't take a picture of JoJo for my thumbnail." But because, like, he had somebody waiting to get
yeah,
tattooed. But I don't as far as editing goes, I don't know. I think you're right. I think it would be like it would drift away from my vision, but what I would love to be able to do is to be a creator full time and then also help out people around me to become creators themselves.
yeah, yeah. No,
That
that
would
would
be
be cool.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be cool. And I think that's kind of why I backed down onto just doing this remotely because there was one of the podcasts that I did last year where, you know, you had to go to them. And it cost me a lot of time and money and it was extremely exhausting to go to them. And I'm just like, who can afford to do that? That kind of limits the pool of people into only the people that have the time for it, can afford it, and really want to go out of their way for it, you know? So, as cheesy as it may be, I think it's just easier to do it remotely for me and has been so far at any rate.
And I'm not opposed to doing remote stuff either, but every time I do stuff remote, I have this fear of a repeat of the Bert situation
Right, right, yeah.
where there's like some kind of technical thing that goes on and then I just wasted his time and my time. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm always
Mhm.
just very fearful of that. So before I even talk about doing anything remote, like I have something on cooked up right now where it's going to be remote if it happens. That I wanna go through the whole technical aspect of it before I say, "Hey, all right, let's do this," because I don't want them to be like, "Oh, yeah, I could just use my phone, it's cool," and, well, yeah, maybe that's cool, but do you understand that if you don't have headphones and you don't have the right program, it's gonna loop and there's gonna be echoes and all kinds of crazy stuff, and yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
tech stuff that goes on that people don't realize.
Well, I mean, and that's the level that you're trying to do it, which is obviously much more professional than anything I'm hoping to do. But I get that part, and I think that I could see that. I have a couple actually with Bert and Henry that the audio quality is just terrible. You know, it's the same exact thing. Who knows what the hell they were doing, like sitting on the toilet with the thing? I have no idea. But old people just don't know how to use these things. I mean, that's unfortunate, but it's just the truth, you know. So I get that. I just think that it's possible to do remote without too much trouble if you just stay simple. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and like the thing that I did with you, right? We did ours remote, and
But
it
that was
was
a
just
disaster to start with.
yeah, but once I talked you like, walked you through it, and we got you set up and rolling, everything was fine, and it was basically just like what we look right now, it was
Mhm.
side by side,
Yeah,
and then I could go in and edit and do whatever I gotta do to add stuff to it, it's not a big deal.
right. Yeah, I guess it's all just the levels that you expect. I appreciate the fact that you do yours nice and polished. You know, I think for the amount of time that you put into it and the amount of traction that you're getting, I mean, it just shows that you're really trying hard to do a great job. So, thank you.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah, you
I
are an
mean,
inspiration to us.
well, I appreciate that, but I also you know, you guys are an inspiration to me as well because you if I don't have you, I don't have anything. So
Well, it's kind of like we say about tattooers, right? I mean, if you don't have customers, you don't have anything. So all these people that are constantly bagging on their customers and stuff like that, it's like you just you can't do that, guys. You know, you've got to remember that without customers, you are nothing. And I honestly think people are starting to see that now. You know, they're like, oh, I have no customers. Why is that personable person down there who's super nice to everybody and buys them candy and lets them wear their slippers to the shop got all the work? It's just like, well, because they were nice, you know. So
yeah, I mean, whether you want to admit it or not, it's a customer service industry.
yeah,
I
100%.
hate to use the word industry at all when we're talking about this, but it's customer service centric. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I never, ever, ever, ever try to say industry. It's a
Well, it
craft.
is an industry. I mean, I can say it, it was a trade, 30 years ago. It is absolutely an industry now. I mean, even when I started tattooing in the late 80s, everybody knew everybody, literally, or knew of, not necessarily knew personally. But you know what, that was there maybe 500 tattooers in the whole world that were of an acceptable level of professional standard. Um, and now, I mean, there's 500 in every 10-mile block in a big city. It's just crazy. I've never thought I would see the day, honestly. And it is an industry because when you have corporations selling equipment and running the show, it's a fucking industry.
So that's yeah, I mean, the corporate part of it is the part that is blowing my mind, especially when you go to and I'm not knocking anybody at all, but when you go to a convention and you see how prevalent corporations and corporate entities are a part of this
Hmm.
and in the forefront, not even like Sly in the background anymore.
Hmm.
Justin and I were talking that, like almost everybody had on their banner, they were like sponsored by, featured with,
Hmm.
and it was about the product and then it was their name. Or, one of the things that I said that kind of stuck out a little bit, and I noticed this because I'm a people watcher. And I noticed that there were people that were literally walking around. You could have all the cool shit on your little desk in front of you, but they were literally walking around and they were looking at the banners.
Uh-huh.
So if you have all the cool fancy script, but if you can't see the person's name and you have to like stop and be like, what does that say? And it doesn't represent what you do, that's a tough sell for people sometimes.
Yeah, but I think you're also looking at it all from, 25, 30 years ago when you got interested in it, because this is what I was saying earlier. I do believe that there is now a completely new sector of tattooing with the newer generation with solely pen machines, having only learned on pen machines, buying no problem from whatever corporation. I think that there is just a massive disconnect now between the two.
If you at a big, big convention and there's 800 people
Yeah,
and
that's crazy by
700
itself.
of them are doing the same exact thing, that's gotta be tough for anybody to get business to tattoo.
Well, yeah, exactly. Early conventions, I mean, there was 50 tattooers, and then it went up to 250, and then some of the recent ones, probably, three, 500, something like that. But that's already a lot. That's why, I mean, you were in Reno when I was in Reno, and Tim Asinger organizes an amazing convention, always has. Um, but his convention, just like a lot of other conventions that I've seen, even though he's a tattoo artist and his intent is to keep the number of tattooers down, it just there wasn't enough clientele to go around.
Yeah, but I think that that was a bad showing of the place that held the convention.
It wasn't just there. There's been a bunch of them I've been to recently that the very last one I went to, I don't think there was any general public there. There may have been four of them the entire weekend.
Wow.
So, yeah, because it's becoming such a big business, and for the small tattoo guys that try to put these things on, as soon as they have to pay for all these expensive things like venues and security and equipment and setup, obviously they have to pass that cost on. So now our tattoo booths have gone up by $200, for example, and then the entry fees have gone up. And so, you want to take your family to a convention for the day, and the pass is $30 to get in, maybe 50. And by the time you've got in, bought your t-shirt and bought a beer, you're already at like $200. And then where's your money for a tattoo, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is part of the problem. It's not necessarily the organizer's problem, it's just the money problem, which, seems to be everywhere now. But
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing is right now with the economy and stuff like that, it's Eric Perfect said it during my interview with him, like, you don't need a tattoo, it's a luxury item."
No, we are absolutely the luxury items, you know, we're just not a necessary evil whatsoever. But I mean, I think personally too that all these flash days and Friday the 13th and I'll do your arm for free to put it in my portfolio have also put a dent in being able to make money. And I'm not complaining because I can make enough money to get by. I do the job I love to do. I'm still doing it, you know. And I just encourage people to just don't lose your minds just yet. And if you've been doing this for years and it's what you love, just hang in there. It'll be okay, you know. And that's all you can really do.
There's the ebb and flow of it, right? So there's
Mhm.
gonna be good times, there's gonna be bad times, and I think one of the things that I've heard the most over this, let's say, year is, the people that have been doing this for a while understand that better than anybody because they know, "All right, man, it's like the time of year where, hey, look, I know I'm not gonna be making as much money, but
Hmm.
in 6 months, it's gonna change, and you gotta
Yeah.
manage your money better," and whatever.
Yeah. Again, the disconnect between then and now, right? Anyway, we are far off track from YouTube videos, other than the fact that you talk to a lot of people. Who's been your most popular and who's been your favorite that you've talked to?
Ugh. As far as interviews go, man, it's tough to pick a favorite, but I really like to sit down with Good Time Charlie was pretty amazing. Yeah, it was surreal for me to be sitting down with him, and to be fair, it was like a little bit off my game that day.
Mhm.
And part of that was I was setting up, and his wife, who's super awesome, love her to death.
Yeah, they're both awesome.
She was like, "I hope you ask questions. He's done a lot of interviews." And I pride myself on digging deep and
Hmm.
trying not to ask the same stuff. And I had already in my mind went, I'm not gonna talk about it, and not to cut him out or whatever, but I was like, I don't want to talk too much about Tattoo Land and Jack, and because everybody always talks about that. And if you want to really hear those, you could go and watch probably 100 different interviews.
Hmm.
So I wanted to dig deeper, but, at the beginning, I had to do the warm up questions of some of the basics, but tried to steer away from that more than about halfway in, right? But it was such a cool experience for me. Couldn't ask to be, he's such a nice guy, and the stories and stuff were amazing. And even the stories that I had after the camera was off, because I hung out with him all day. I
Hmm.
mean, we all went out to I'm gonna call it dinner, might as well call it breakfast. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. And he was talking about like how he's related to the Dalton gang and his dad being this coming from the lineage of preachers and stuff like that. It was just really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Charlie is nothing if not a showman.
As far as like my best interview, like view wise, I don't know. I'd have to look. I really when it comes to the interviews, it kind of is what it is.
Hmm.
The history stuff that is tons of research, tons of digging up pictures and B-roll and stuff like that. Those are the ones that I'm like, I want to see numbers because I'm like, man, all this effort. And when they don't do well, it's like, man, why am I doing this? But then I have one like I did my Cap Coleman video. That thing blew up. That's
Hmm.
my best video right now, views
Yeah.
wise.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, and it's true, I think that, when you put all that time in, but I'm also going to say that I think you have the same view probably as I do, where it's like if that person's going to put time in to send you pictures, to take the time to talk to you and all of that. I've had days where I get halfway through and oh God, and then it's like, wait, you have to get it right because this person wants you to get it right. And you got into this and said you were going to do it right. So, slap yourself around a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I
maybe it
mean,
might get one hit, but that's one more than none.
like I really loved Dana Brunson's interview.
Hmm.
That was great. I loved the interview I did with Sailor Eddie Jr.
Hmm.
because of his grandparents. And that, to be honest with you, was a really hard nut to crack for me
Hmm.
because, you know, he was not really into doing it at the beginning.
Yeah.
And when I finally got him to do it, and I went in there with doing a ton of research and making sure I had cool stuff to ask that I haven't heard anybody ask yet. I caught him off guard. I could see his face and I knew I had him. Like, I knew he was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool. This guy knows," you know what I mean? So, stuff like that. I love that part of it.